Who might be on the ballot this November? Today is the deadline for candidates who want to run for office to turn in their signed petitions. It's also an important marker in determining how Senator John McCain's seat would be filled in the event that he leaves office or passes away. Joe Dana verifies what happens after today and why the governor holds a lot of power.
Senator McCain's term technically runs for another 4.5 years through the end of 2022. Some election observers believed that if the senator had left office before today, Arizona law calls for Governor Doug Ducey to appoint a replacement senator who would fill the spot until the end of this year. The actual replacement, beginning in 2019, would be chosen in the next general election cycle. We're talking primaries in August and a general election November 6th. But now what? What happens if Senator McCain steps down, say, next week? Many believe it would be too late to get candidates in place for the general. So the successor, who Governor Ducey appoints, would suddenly get 2 more years and fill in through the end of 2020. But that's not set in stone either. The Arizona Secretary of State's office tells 12 News today there's no clear-cut agreement about whether today, May 30th, is really the end-all, be-all cutoff date. If the senator were to leave office in the near future, expect legal challenges, possibly from Democrats, who might argue there is still time to get candidates in place for the August primaries and November general. So given the Secretary of State is not saying definitively what she will do, there are still questions here. Even election lawyers acknowledge it's not a clear-cut issue because the state constitution doesn't spell out exactly what should happen. Back to you.
We've also learned that just yesterday, Governor Ducey traveled to Senator McCain's retreat outside of Sedona to visit with the senator and his wife, Cindy. That's according to a report by the political website The Hill. It's unknown if the governor is taking advice from Senator McCain on who would be his eventual replacement.